Hey, it's Soul with another video, and today I'm going to talk about the Legion remix as we wrap up the trial period on the PTR, and I apologize for sounding kind of run down. I wasn't engaged with the remix every day during the trial, but I did go kind of hard to get a feel of what the experience will be like. The feedback I'm going to share probably won't cover all of your personal concerns. I'm coming at this from my point of view mostly, as someone who's most interested in the cool power fantasy of being able to rise up and solo content with godlike invincibility, and that's going to turn into some quick blasting and farming for cosmetics and to help others out. I'm not going to give much of an explainer of how everything works. Again, it's not that kind of video, so I apologize if some of what I say goes over your head. Please like this video if it's useful, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and catch me where I'm live. The remix can be summed up to one word during this trial. It's slow. It's very, very slow. But the way this remix kicks off is kind of cool. We appear as this alternate universe version of the real champions who showed up and saved Azeroth, which is a way of hand-waving why the Draftier aren't around in a fairly convincing way, and it future-proofs the Legion remix of ever adding future classes. The intro starts off slow for a reason, and I get it. The remix isn't just for veterans like us, but for anyone, and the intro goes into greater lengths to explain the familiar mechanics of powering up, breaking down gear, and so on and so forth. Once we're through the whole intro, we're basically in Legion, plus an island off to the side for all the infinite dragon stuff, and then it's off to the races. But there's this immediate feeling of emptiness. The power we get at the start to supercharge our cooldowns, it is very powerful at least later on, but it doesn't mean much of anything at level 10 when our toolkit is super small. Level 20 is the time when we get enough infinite power to choose an artifact ability where this remix time ability actually helps. And this kind of underlines how the experience doesn't feel so great early on. Level 20 is kind of far away. In the original Legion, we did get our power right away, which makes the start of the Legion remix feel more like Legion Chromie time. My suggestion is to add more oomph to the remix time button, like have it explode enemies for some decent damage, or provide some healing and damage reduction for us too, so the button feels universally cool to press all the time, forever. The power progression while leveling felt okay, but also sort of uneven. There are different lanes, I guess I'll call them, that determine our performance. There's our level, the item level of our artifact weapon, our item level via gear, and then later the infinite trait at the end, which we'll get to later. I noticed that around level 30 or so, things lined up to where I was able to start soloing dungeons, and I was like, okay, cool, here we go, my rise to power. Now, it was slow going through these dungeons, but I could do it. But as I leveled some more, I guess the scaling outpaced me, and I could no longer solo dungeons. This is even after I started trying to focus on collecting the right gear with ideal powers and stats, but it just wasn't enough. Even outdoors, I wasn't quite feeling the power fantasy of having these wacky abilities making me feel strong, at least not like before. I recall during the mop remix, there was a sort of jarring feeling of rubberbanding where I would feel really strong, and then at a certain level, all of a sudden the mobs were way stronger than me and my gear needed to catch up. The rubberbanding is less impactful here in Legion, but I also never got to feel all that powerful in the first place. Which brings me to the gearing. Now, I'm not fond of RNG mostly dictating my itemization here. The feel of upgrading is limited to my artifact weapon's infinite trait as I finish leveling, instead of being able to upgrade all of my gear like in the mop remix. I guess that's the trade-off of not being able to use bronze as a way of powering up. It's a multi-fold thing too, because I want to care about the stats on most of my gear like haste, because, well, we can't farm haste like we could in the mop remix, which kind of sucks. We don't have stat gems, but I can live with that. But I also want to care about the powers I get from accessories because they're tied together, and I have to care about the quality of the gear it's sitting on. It doesn't feel so great when I need to hold off on replacing gear because this 580 green isn't the same as a 480 epic. In fairness, this does kind of solve itself. It feels slightly better once I reach max level, and I start to get only epics from doing endgame content, as well as the raid box after opening 10 normal boxes and using the special item. The small problem with that, though, is it makes me feel like I shouldn't have been doing quests while leveling and just focused out on grinding experience instead. That way I would have all of these quests and all of these boxes and then all these epics to sort through at max level. And even then, there are fewer accessories than other gear pieces that drop, making the powering up of traits in the Legion remix frustrating at just about every level. I'd much rather have the powers not be tied directly to gear and/or have a better way of earning them. At endgame, the road to really being able to solo content feels so slow, I can't even see a path to soloing content at all. I reached max level and I progressed like 20 or so levels into the infinite trait at the end, and I noticed while we get 120 towards our main stat, the trait itself has diminishing returns, which Copium tells me, okay, this must be a bug, right? And I hope it is, because dude, like knowing your efforts feel like they're worth less over time as we go, it doesn't feel good, especially when we're not even at that stage when we can start soloing stuff yet. Maybe part of this approach is based on feedback during the mob remix because, yeah, there were degens and no-lifers. They were zooming pretty fast, frogging or no frogging, and maybe with the 2-week cadence between tiers, it's a way of stopping us from getting too far ahead. But at least for some players, it looks like this is going to backfire real hard, and those players, they're going to be really loud about it. Now, I'm just speaking for me in this feedback. My approach for the mob remix was to go hard early on because I wanted that power fantasy. Then I can circle back and farm bronze and then goof around with guildmates. The way the Legion remix is positioning itself so far, I'll have to change my approach and just focus on maybe quests and achievements that I can do solo, and then maybe wait a bit until the next phase and then keep doing that until Legion fully opens up, and hopefully by then I can start soloing stuff because, again, that's all I care to do. I just want to see myself solo the raids and maybe even keys. I'd just rather not wait that long. But back to the original point, will I be able to solo the toughest content eventually? Some of the coolest appearances come from running group content, but I'd like a path that lets me get around that and just do it on my own. Can I get to that point, and how long will it take? It feels as if I'm going to need to wait until the remix fully opens up so I can start getting the drops that I can turn into Antorus level loot boxes. Instead of my player behavior being like, okay, I'm going to drop in and slam week 1, should I wait until the start of week 7 instead? Like, I need to be way more strategic with the timing of which I do things so I can start fulfilling on that power fantasy without that hurry and wait kind of feeling. And honestly, I don't want to strategize. I just want to come at this like a blunt hammer and bonk my way to greatness. We're in the PTR and we're wrapping up this trial, I get it, but as is, the Legion remix just doesn't feel fun, for my playstyle at least. There's tons of grind for not much payoff, and I'm not even getting into the cosmetic farms or leveling in this feedback. I'm sure others have plenty to say about that too, but I'll summarize my suggestions here. Add some generous throughput to the remix time button so it feels good to press right when we get it. Consider not tying the traits to gear or have a vendor of sorts, but basically make it easier for us to swap out our traits. Revisit the unlock schedule. I totally understand the complaints over degen grinding, but personally, I'd rather wrap up the remix fun time earlier than later, so I can, do other things like check out player housing and the midnight alpha and beta, and wrap up my remaining business in the world within. But whether that schedule changes or not, that infinite talent really needs to be looked at. It's just very small potatoes, and it doesn't scale well at the moment. Those are my personal takes, and it definitely sounds like I should wrap things up. This feedback comes from my point of view, and whether you agree or not, please feel free to leave your own experiences or reactions here in the comments. Please like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.